First thing we do, as soon as we get home, is to put all the bones. Oh, this is for the broth. And for the broth, we're going to put, we have different bones. These are bones that have the marrow inside. And this is a knuckle bone. This is from a leg. And between all the different bones we have a little bit of meat, we have gelatin, and the bones have a lot of calcium and collagen. When we do a slow, long boil, simmer, the collagen comes out from the bones, and that's why bone broth is considered so healthy. So the first thing we're doing is, after I rinse the bones, we're putting them in a big pot. The biggest pot I have here is this clay pot. These are very, very good pots. And I'm going to let it sit for between half an hour to 1 hour in cold water with vinegar. This is apple cider vinegar, vinagre de manzana. This is an organic, very nice vinegar. So we don't need much. And that is the first thing to do for making a bone broth. After letting the bones sit in cold water with vinegar for at least half an hour, bring the pot to a boil. Skim all the foam and then lower the fire and to a low simmer and let it simmer gently for at least 12 hours. A few hours later, now it's 8 at night. We started it, I think, around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. When it just started simmering, there was a lot of foam. And I picked up the foam and I put it in here. And I sieved the good part of the soup back. And there's a little bit of fat here also. Eventually there will be fat and we'll separate it. But we got rid of the foam, is the impurities. And after a while I put a bunch of thyme, tomillo, and I put some of our homegrown rosemary. And I put leaves of the bay leaves, and that's it. We're going to let it continue to simmer gently. So as you can see, there's just enough heat for the broth to gently simmer. That's how we want it. We don't want a rolling boil, but we need to see that there's a little bit of movement. And we're leaving it slightly covered. If I cover it all the way, it might get too hot and start boiling, so we're leaving it skewed open. So the next thing that goes in the bone broth is cebolla, onion. Every time we make a broth, bone broth, vegetable broth, we will always use onion. Just take out the peel, because the peel can sometimes be bitter. These onions might not be eaten at all. They will be part of the broth, the caldo. Gives a wonderful flavor. Don't waste anything. I'm already starting to cry. So now we're adding a lot of onion. and make a delicious broth. There we go. So every time the soup comes to a new boil, the broth, there's foam. And this foam is what we want to chase. There's not a lot of foam now, but it's a good opportunity to show how the foam rises to the top and we want to fish it out. Like they say, the impurities rise to the top. So the foam usually signifies impurities. This is very delicious. So when we make a broth, we let the bones boil by themselves for a few hours. We add the herbs, like I added the thyme, and then we added the onions, and now we can add apio, celery, and just in rough big sizes. And that's like the French style of making a broth. Always has onions, celery, and zanahoria, carrots. These are organic carrots, and I'm not going to peel them. I don't like peeling carrots unless there's a really bad things on them, but this is okay for our broth to give flavor, some sweetness to the broth, to the caldo. And when I put them whole tomorrow, when they're cooked and soft, instead of throwing them, I could eat them. Yum, yum, yum. So, I consulted with Jose, and we decided we are going to put the oxtail in the bone broth, because this is going to simmer now for the whole night. And really the best thing for the cola, for the tail, the oxtail, is a long, slow simmer. And when I have this already going, I just want to put this in instead of tomorrow. Excuse me, Jose. Instead of tomorrow, start again to make a whole separate soup of the oxtail. So we'll let the oxtail simmer, and let's see what happens tomorrow morning. And I got another beautiful piece of meat from the market, and here we have red wine. And red wine is a wonderful addition for any kind of bone broth, oxtail soup. So here we go. And yes, it has some fat, and the fat will rise to the top. This is the fat. But tomorrow we will take care of it. We'll separate the fat, and we will save it to use it for cooking. It's called tallow. Okay, good night soup, good night broth. We'll come to visit you in a couple of hours. Boker tov, buenos dias, good morning. I was here twice in the night, maybe around 11:30 and again at 3:30 to check the soup, to check the broth and the boiling. I wish you were with me, Jose. Vamos a ver, let's see what is going on. So this is what it looks like. In the middle of the night when I came, I added 2 big turnips and I added beets, beterragas, and they cook slowly and they become very delicious. This is our stale cola de res oxtail. Look how soft the meat is. That was a beautiful idea.
Wow,
¿Cómo estás?
tastes good.
No mal, huh?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So thank you very much. Beautiful pot, beautiful Oya, for preparing all of this for us. And this is the meat. Wow. So this is what we wanted to see. Very slow, very gentle. Actually added this vamos a ver. I want to show you what we added. This, yeah. So that makes a very even flame, very even heating. Because when I came to visit in the night, I saw that there was too much boiling on one side, and I put this, and it made it very even. And look at the flame, very low, muy bajo. And that's the work of doing a bone broth for many hours. You need to keep checking the flames. And during the night, a few times, if I saw some foam, espuma, I took it. But there's no foam now, it's clean. Okay, so muy bien. We put it back on. When I make a bone broth, I use mostly bones and a little bit of meat. And this way I feel that I'm respecting the parts of the animal that usually are not being used. Very few people here buy the bones, they go maybe for dogs. This way I feel that I'm giving more gratitude and blessing to the animal by using its bones, what most people don't use. And I'm getting a rich, very healthy, very nurturing, that will stretch for many soups actually. From that broth, this will be the base for several soups. The soup we'll make today will have black mushrooms. These are local mushrooms that are collected in the mountains. And when we cook them in the meat broth, it becomes a very rich, very nutritious soup with very little meat. So that's one of my aims, is to make food that is super healthy, super delicious, super economical, and super ecological, sustainable. You understand me? Thank you. Okay, so here I put water with apple cider vinegar, and all the bones have been cooked for maybe 12-15 hours. They could be cooked further. They could be cooked 24 hours, 48 hours, up to 36 hours, which is 3 days. And we still can extract the minerals, the calcium, the collagen, and the gelatin. That's what we're looking for. That's all the health benefits. So we're going to give them a second boil here until tomorrow. In the meanwhile here, we passed all the liquid that we had here, and it is now here. So this, as you can see, there's a big layer of fat taken out. And there is a lot of fat. I don't want to consume the fat in the soup. When there's a lot of fat floating on the soup, it's a bit disgusting. However, this fat of healthy cows is a valuable resource. We will sieve it, pass it through a sieve, and cool it down, and it will become like lard. Lard is made from the fat of pigs. Tallow is made from the fat of sheep. And this is the fat of beef. I have to find out what it's called in English. But this is gold. This is pure gold that we could use for sautéing, for cooking, instead of other oils and other fats. So what I do is I catch the fat here on the spoon, and then the rest of the broth goes back, and the fat goes on the top. And I put it until we get to the fat, okay? And we can continue this way until we take all the fat. Or also, I'm gonna put this to rest, that's enough. Now, taking this broth and putting it into our containers. This is the beautiful bone broth. And this one has also the vegetables. Remember the onions, the carrots, the celery. And this we could store in the refrigerator up to 5 days and use it meanwhile, or let it cool, take off the fat that rises to the top and save it for our cooking, and keep it in the freezer. We have to make sure it's not too full so it doesn't expand and crack. We need to leave like an inch this way. In the freezer, it could last a long time, many months. So that's the gold. Here is our production of the bone broth. Ooh, this is incredible. And I have a friend who's suffering from some illnesses and have issues with digestion, have issues with teeth, have issues with diabetes, and she actually asked me for some bone broth recently, so today I'll be able to give it to her. And this is one of the most healing foods that I know of. Okay, so we will probably save 2 and use these 2 for the soup that we're going to make later today. All right.